My mom always loved my younger sister more than me. Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm 28 years old. After graduating from college, I got a decent job and lived with my mom. My dad passed away a few years ago, and my younger sister, Selena, is married and has her own family now. Originally, I planned to live on my own too, but when my sister got married, I decided to stay with my mom because I didn't want her to live alone. Looking back, my mom always favored Selena over me. Selena and I are complete opposites. She's cute, stylish, and charming on the outside, even though her personality isn't the best. Somehow, her looks always seem to make up for everything. I, on the other hand, have always been more serious and plain. After Selena got married and left home, my mom constantly complained about me. She would say things like, "I wish Selena lived with me instead of you. Why is Selena so pretty while you have nothing to offer? I'm tired of seeing your face." Even though I worked hard to support the family, my mom still said hurtful things. One day, I couldn't hold back anymore. I told her, "Mom, I know you think Selena is cute, but you don't have to say such things to me." This made her even angrier. She shouted, "If you were as good as Selena, I wouldn't have to deal with this every day. Selena should be here with me, not you." It hurt to hear those words. I felt like no matter what I did, I could never measure up to my sister. Our house was rebuilt a few years before my dad died, and even though the house is in my mom's name, I'm the one paying off the remaining loan. Despite that, my mom always compared me to Selena and made me feel worthless. Every time she saw me, she would say cruel things, and I felt like I was at my breaking point. But I didn't give up on my mom. After my dad passed away, she cried for days. She stopped eating properly and became so weak that everyone around her worried. Seeing her like that made me feel responsible for taking care of her, even if it hurt me. I had to support my mom, but everything changed. After my dad passed away, I felt like it was my responsibility to support my mom. I wanted to protect her for my dad's sake. As her eldest daughter, I always had a strong sense of duty. Even though I often got upset at my mom's harsh words and actions, I couldn't bring myself to hate her completely. She was the only parent I had left. But one day, everything changed. My younger sister Selena suddenly came to the house with her husband. As soon as she saw my mom, she burst into tears and said something shocking. "Mom, we're struggling to make ends meet." My mom immediately looked worried. "What happened?" she asked. Selena sobbed as she explained. "My husband got laid off, and we can't afford to pay rent for our apartment. Life is so hard, I don't know what to do." My mom gasped. "Oh no, that's terrible." Selena then said, "Mom, I can only rely on you now. Can we move in with you?" Hearing that, I panicked. I knew this was a bad situation, but before I could say anything, my mom immediately agreed. Yes, of course, my lovely Selena, I'll help you." Selena smiled and hugged my mom. "Thank you, Mom, I love you so much." My mom was overjoyed. It felt like they'd made this decision together without even considering how I felt. Frustrated, I approached my mom and said, "Wait a minute, Mom, I live here too. You can't just decide this without asking me." My mom didn't even flinch. She just looked at me coldly and said, "So what? The house is in my name, isn't it?" I tried to argue back. "But Mom, I've been paying the loan for this house." She sighed heavily and said, "If you have a problem with it, then get out of the house." I froze in shock. "What are you saying?" she continued, her words cutting me deeply. "I told you to leave. You were nothing more than a replacement for Selena. Anyway, if Selena comes back, I don't need you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Mom, how can you say something so cruel?" She just looked at me with indifference and said, "I don't need a parasite like you." Her words left me stunned and broken, as if I'd been swallowed by complete darkness. My sister's return and my mom's betrayal. I always knew my mom adored my younger sister, but I couldn't believe how easily she cut me off, despite me taking care of her for so many years. Selena, who left my mom after getting married without a second thought, was loved unconditionally, and I, who had supported my mom all my life, was treated so unfairly. I couldn't understand why my mom acted this way. I was so frustrated and hurt that I nearly burst into tears. Seeing me like that, Selena looked at me with a sly smirk and said, "Sis, why don't you just get the hell out of here?" I was shocked. "What?" she sneered again. "Mom said it too. If you don't leave, there won't be enough room for us. We don't need you." I couldn't hold back. "What do you mean you don't need me? I've been the one supporting Mom this whole time." Selena just shrugged. So what? Mom wants to live with me now. We don't need you anymore. You're trash. Then, as if I didn't even exist, Selena called my mom and her husband. Together, they excitedly started planning her move. I'm so happy. Let's have a barbecue on the day we move in. Great idea. I'll get the ingredients. They were so cheerful, and I felt invisible. I stood there in shock while my sister turned to me again and snapped. What are you doing just standing there? I told you to get out of here. Her words hit me like a slap. You're just a parasite. Get out and give us some space. Be out by the end of the week. That's fine, right? I couldn't argue anymore. Holding back tears, I quietly agreed. Meanwhile, my mom was already planning a short trip with Selena and her husband. Before leaving, my mom said, "You'd better be gone by the time we get back." Then they all left together, laughing and happy, as if I didn't matter at all. At that moment, I realized something. To my mom, I was just a distraction. As long as Selena was there, I was nothing to her. I had spent so many years feeling sympathy and love for my mom, but now that sympathy was gone, I was done being treated this way. If this is how it's going to be, I thought, I won't put up with it anymore. From that moment on, I was determined to take revenge. And I acted quickly. I moved out and left them shocked. As soon as my mom and sister left for their trip, I immediately contacted a moving company. I didn't waste any time. I packed everything up and moved out while they were away. The movers asked me curiously, "Is all this stuff going?" I smiled and said, "Yes, please make sure everything is taken cleanly." I had decided to move into company housing. My company had offered it to me several times, but I always refused because I didn't want to leave my mom alone. This time, I checked and found out there were still vacancies, so I quickly completed the move-in procedures. I never expected to move out like this, but once I arrived, I was pleasantly surprised. The room was even nicer than I'd imagined, and I felt a sense of relief starting my new life. A few days later, as I was settling in, I noticed my phone had several missed calls and voicemails from my mom and sister. The message said, "Show up at the house now." I'd been expecting this, but the sheer number of calls was more than I thought. I knew if I ignored them, they might show up at my workplace. So, on my way home from work, I decided to stop by my mom's house. When I opened the door, I found my mom and sister waiting for me with furious expressions. "Hey, what the hell is going on? The house is empty. You even took my favorite refrigerator and toaster." I stayed calm despite their yelling and replied, "I took everything to my new house." My sister shouted, "What do you mean? Don't take things without permission. Give it back now." I raised an eyebrow and said, "Give it back? Why?" My sister glared at me and snapped, "The furniture and appliances belong to Mom." Hearing this, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. "What's so funny?" my sister demanded, looking even angrier. I shook my head and said, "I think you're misunderstanding something." My sister raised her voice again. "What do you mean?" I decided it was time to explain calmly. "I don't know what you've been thinking, but I bought all the furniture and appliances in this house with my own money. Since I'm moving out, of course, I'm taking my things with me." My sister froze in disbelief. What are you talking about?" I repeated firmly. "Everything that was left in this house was bought by me. Do you understand now?" My sister turned red with anger and snapped, "That doesn't mean you should take everything. It's always been here." She was huffing and puffing, glaring at me like I was the devil. Then she shouted something else. "And the bank account has no money. We couldn't even use Mom's credit card on vacation, so I had to borrow cash to pay for the trip." I raised an eyebrow and said sarcastically, "Oh, really?" She then accused me. "You took all the money in the bank, didn't you?" I smirked and replied, "Of course, it was my money. What's wrong with me taking what's mine?" Hearing this, my sister completely lost it. She turned to me and screamed, "Don't play games with me." I left my family behind and found happiness. When my mom and sister returned from their trip, they were furious. My sister's face turned red as she got closer and screamed, "Give back the money. Dad's insurance money should have been in that bank account." I stayed calm and replied, "What are you talking about? There's no money left in there." My sister looked shocked. "No way, the last time I came here, there was a lot of money." I smirked and said, "That was just me putting in part of my income every month. It just added up over time." She stammered, "Then what about Dad's insurance money?" I shrugged. "That's been gone for a long time. Your favorite mom spent it all." Hearing this, my sister turned to my mom in disbelief. My mom avoided her gaze and looked guilty. Wait a minute, Mom, is this true? My sister asked nervously. My mom mumbled, unable to answer. My sister lost it and yelled. What the hell is going on? I came back because I thought Dad's insurance money was here. Trying to calm my sister down, my mom whispered. Calm down, Selena. But my sister shouted back. How can I calm down? You spent Dad's money, what are we supposed to do now? The truth finally came out, my sister and her husband had huge gambling debts. To repay them, they gambled even more, but the debt only grew. On top of that, her husband was fired from his job due to restructuring. With no other options, they returned to my mom's house, hoping to use Dad's insurance money to clear their debts. My mom, completely unaware that she was being used, kicked me out on a whim, and now this was the result. I looked at both of them and said calmly. Now you understand, don't you? There's no insurance money here, just a mortgage. I'm leaving, and you two can pay the rest of the loan. At that moment, my sister ran up to me with tears in her eyes. Wait, sis, my husband and I can't pay the loan, we're drowning in debt. I simply replied. That's none of my business, didn't you want to live with Mom? My mom tried to grab me, pleading. Emily, please don't go, I didn't know this would happen. I shook them off and shouted. I supported you and paid for this house all these years, but you always favored Selena. When she came back, you told me to get out and called me a parasite. Are you kidding me? Selena isn't a cute little sister, she's a human parasite. I'm done with this family, you two can deal with your debts together. With those final words, I walked out and never looked back. What happened to them after I left? About a month later, I heard that my mom and sister had started working part-time jobs to survive. Even so, they couldn't earn enough money. Eventually, they had no choice but to sell the family home and move into a small, cheap apartment. There, they fought constantly. My sister yelled, Mom, this is your fault. If you hadn't kicked Emily out, we could have used her to help us. My mom shouted back, I kicked her out to make room for you. My sister snapped, you're worthless except for money. My mom screamed, watch your mouth, get out of here. Their days were filled with fights and struggles. They could barely afford food, let alone new clothes. My new life. Meanwhile, I was thriving in my new company housing. My commute to work was much shorter, which gave me more time for myself. I was shocked when my mom kicked me out, but now I feel grateful. Thank you for kicking me out, I think to myself. I'm finally free and living for my own happiness. From now on, I'll focus on enjoying my life.